34,000 children were living on the streets of New York City in 1854. Not in shelters, not in orphanages, on the streets, sleeping in doorways, selling matches and rags just to eat, forming gangs because no adult was coming to protect them. The city had no system to handle them. The police had no answers. The churches had no room. The almshouses were overflowing with adults who had nothing left either. And the children fell through every crack there was. They were called street urchins. That was the official term. Not children in crisis. Not victims of a broken system. Street urchins. And then one man looked at 34,000 abandoned children and said he had a solution. His name was Charles Loring Brace. He was 26 years old. He founded the Children's Aid Society in 1853. And what he built over the next 75 years would become the largest child migration program in American history. He called it Placing Out. The rest of the world would eventually call it the Orphan Trains. Between 1854 and 1929, an estimated 250,000 children were taken from the streets and tenements of New York City and loaded onto trains heading west. Not dozens, not hundreds, 250,000 children. They were told they were going somewhere better. Some were. Most had no idea what was waiting for them at the other end of the tracks. The first train left on September 20th, 1854. 46 children, boys and girls between 10 and 12 years old. Destination, Dowagiac, Michigan. All 46 were placed with local families within 5 days. Brace called it a triumph. He sent more trains, then more, then more. By the 1870s, the operation was running continuously across dozens of rail lines stretching deep into the American Midwest. Children were gathered from the streets, cleaned up, given donated clothing, and handed a paper tag to wear around their neck. A number, not a name, a number. They were placed into train cars that in the early years were barely better than cattle cars. There were no proper bathroom facilities. There was minimal food. There were children as young as infants and as old as teenagers packed into the same carriage. They were told very little about where they were going. One survivor recalled a matron simply walking down a line and tapping children on the head without explanation. That tap meant you were leaving tomorrow. When the trains arrived in small Midwestern towns, the children were unloaded and lined up. On train platforms, in courthouses, in church halls with the pews pushed back. Notices had been posted in the towns in advance. Homes wanted for children, and the local farming families came to look at them. They walked slowly down the line. They examined the children's hands for signs of strength and callus. They checked their teeth. They looked at their legs and their backs. They asked about their health. They asked what skills they had. Critics at the time drew one very specific comparison. They said it looked exactly like an auction. They were not wrong. The families who took children were not required to formally adopt them in the early decades. There was no legal contract. There was no court oversight. There was no mandated follow-up visit. An agent might check in once, or they might not come back at all. A child could be taken from that platform and disappear entirely into a rural farmstead, and no official body would confirm they were safe. Some children found genuine homes. Some found love and stability and families who fought to keep them and raise them as their own. But others found something entirely different. They found farms that needed free labor and had found a legal way to obtain it. They found households that wanted a servant who could not leave and could not complain. They found adults who understood very clearly that this child had no legal standing and no one was watching. And here is what the official story does not say loudly enough. Many of these children were not orphans. Read that again slowly. Many had living parents. Parents who were poor. Parents who were recent immigrants who had arrived in a country that offered them nothing. Parents who were sick or desperate or had fallen behind on rent. In some documented cases, parents who never agreed to give their children away at all. The Children's Aid Society did not always investigate whether a child was truly without family before placing them on a train. Poverty alone was sometimes enough. Living in the wrong neighborhood was sometimes enough. Having the wrong surname on the wrong block was sometimes enough. And siblings were routinely separated. Brothers and sisters who had survived the streets of New York together, who had protected each other through years of danger, were split apart at the train platform and sent to different families in different states. No arrangement was made to keep them in contact. No mechanism existed to reunite them. Some spent the rest of their lives searching. Some never found each other again. Once a child was placed, the system considered the matter resolved. And the system did not look back. Children who were mistreated had almost no mechanism to report it. Children who ran away were sometimes arrested as adults. Children who aged out of their placements without being adopted were simply released with nothing. No documentation, no resources, no family, just the memory of a number on a tag around their neck. The program ran for 75 years. 75 years of trains pulling into small towns. 75 years of children standing in rows waiting to be chosen. 75 years of ledger books where human lives were recorded in columns like agricultural inventory. And when it finally ended in 1929, it did not end because of a national outcry. It did not end because investigations exposed widespread abuse. It ended because state legislatures passed child welfare laws that made the unregulated placement model legally difficult to continue. The program was not shut down in disgrace. It was quietly discontinued. The children who had ridden those trains were adults by then. Most never spoke publicly about what they had experienced. The records were fragmented. Many were sealed. Some were lost entirely. Some were destroyed. And the story faded. Today, there are an estimated 2 million Americans alive who are direct descendants of orphan train riders. 2 million people who may be carrying a history they were never told. A grandmother who arrived on a platform at age 7 with a number around her neck and a cloth bundle containing everything she owned. A great-grandfather who was separated from his younger brother at a station in Kansas and spent 40 years quietly trying to find him. People who grew up knowing their family history felt incomplete, but not knowing why. The story was presented to the public as a bold experiment in child welfare. The textbooks described it as the foundation of the American foster care system. And that is technically accurate, but the children on those trains did not experience a bold experiment. They experienced being loaded into a train car without being told where they were going. They experienced being lined up in a courthouse and inspected by strangers. They experienced waiting to find out if anyone would choose them. And if no one did, they got back on the train and went to the next town and waited again. 250,000 children, 75 years, almost no oversight, almost no accountability, almost no one in the history books stopping to ask what happened to the ones the families passed over. This story was never in your school curriculum. You were never taught that number. You were never shown the ledger books listing children like grain supplies. You were never told that the system credited with founding American foster care began with children being inspected on courthouse floors like livestock at a county fair. You know it now, and that changes something. If this hit you, share this video right now. Not as content, because 2 million people are walking around today with a family member in this story, and they do not know it yet. Type the word train in the comments if you watched all the way through. And go to the Odd Archive page on Facebook and leave a review. Tell people what we do here. When you recommend this page, Facebook pushes it to people who have never seen it. That is how the buried stories escape the silence they were placed in. The history they hid does not survive on its own. It survives because people like you refuse to scroll past it.